All right, extreme expanding 9mm ammo. I just picked up this monolithic hollow point from Norma, and I'm thinking, why don't I do a test in a 5-inch barrel and a 3-inch barrel? But also, I just realized that one of my supporters, Mark C, supplied a couple boxes of this a couple years ago, and it is 9mm maximum expansion. So we're looking at kind of the same type of deal going on, where we're looking at a really big expansion very rapidly. And if we can see that photo of that monolithic, that's pretty big. So I'm going to test both through a 5-inch barrel and a 3-inch barrel, and I'm going to compare it to the HST. And we have Mr. Turtle here helping today. I found him right down here, right by my shooting gear, just kind of sitting around. And also, I get a lot of questions and a lot of comments that people like ammo like this because they think it will stop and drywall quicker than other ammunition. So I want to put that to the test. Now, I don't think it will. A lot of people get the kind of the misconception that because it expands huge, it'll expand huge in drywall and stuff like that. And that's not exactly how it works. Typically, if you clog a hollow point, it's not going to expand at all. However, this is 108 grain, this is 105 grain. And they have pretty thin walls, and they are solid copper. Those are all things that may reduce penetration through a wall board. So we'll compare that in the gel, not only to HST, but into the drywall with the HST as well, and see if there's a difference, because copper is a little bit lighter and less dense than lead, you know, and kind of petals that move back really easily, that might break up a little bit. So because these are supposed to really expand, I'm only going to do one ballistic gel block. That should be all that I need. If it passes through, we definitely know we have a failure here. So we have 3 inches of clear ballistics. I'm going to use medium density fiberboard for all of these shots, because this kind of represents like a ribs or sternum hit, and we really want to know what that'll do against that versus, you know, just plain gel, because I think there's other videos and just plain gel in that. So we are going through 4 layers of denim, 3 inches of clear ballistics, 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard, and into more clear ballistics, and then I'll shoot a few from 25 yards just to see, you know, what kind of accuracy these things will have. So let's get started with the test. All right, first up, I'm going to run through the 5-inch pistol, 1 round of the HST plus P, then 5 rounds of the Underwood maximum expansion, then 5 rounds of the monolithic hollow points. So here's our control round. That's our HST plus P. All right, now here is our Underwood maximum expansion. I think it's rated at 1175 feet per second. 1150, 1152, 1142, 1136, 1137. So even a 5-inch pistol, a little bit below rate of velocity. Now we have 5 rounds of that monolithic hollow point. I think they're rated at like 1300 and some feet per second. So let's see what we get with these. And these are like 108 grain, and the Underwoods were 105 grain. 1239, 1228, 1211, 1188, 1132. So both of those rounds are pretty optimistic to want to say way above, you know, rate of velocity way above what I got even in a 5-inch barrel. So now let's try the 3-inch pistol and see how that does. All right, I'm not even gonna paste up those shot holes because this pistol's not particularly accurate. We'll try the Underwood, see what we get. 1065, 1056, 1059, 1051, 1057. So pretty consistent, I'll give it that out of this little short pistol. Let's try the monolithic hollow point. All right, monolithic hollow point. See how this does. 1084, 1092, 1095, 1015, 1094. And even though the velocity isn't a massive increase, the recoil is actually a lot higher than the Underwood. So the Underwood is definitely more pleasant shooting. So let's try our ballistic gel block, and we'll see how these all compare to each other. So as our control round here, I'm going to shoot the HST plus P. Dead center, and we'll see how this does. All right, so what we got with the HST is always really predictable performance. We're looking at about 15.5, which if you put in the equation 2 inches, this equals 2 inches of this, because this typically does take away about 2 inches of this because it's a harder resistance. We're looking at like 17.5. So really good performance and within the FBI protocol, essentially, if you want to call it that, at least from my estimation here. So let's try the Underwood through the 5-inch barrel, and we'll see how that compares to this. All right, Underwood maximum expansion. We'll see what we get with this. And if we look at the fiberboard impact, this is the HST, this is the maximum expansion, we see a totally different pattern going on there. So what we're definitely seeing is maximum expansion, but we're only at about 7.25, which would typically be about 9.25 without the MDF. So a little bit under penetration. Let's go up above that with our monolithic and see how that does. All right, monolithic hollow point. Let's go right up above that, and we'll see how this does. All right. So it appears somehow I hit the same part of that fiberboard. I'm going to pull up a brand new piece of fiberboard because that went all the way through, just to avoid hitting a previous hole, and we'll see how that does. All right, we'll try our monolithic again. See if I can get a better shot here. All right. So I don't know what's going on here, why it's continuing to pass through, but that's what it's doing. It's going through all of this. So that's over penetration, because this is 19 inches of gel, and we're also looking at you know, way too much resistance with this for that to be happening. Let me set up what gel I have, and I'll try to catch one. All right, our gel is kind of already shot up on that back side there. I didn't think I'd actually need that from what I've seen with this round, so let's try to catch another one. So here it is, and we're at 23 inches. You'd have to count 25 with the MDF, but this is my real world simulation here. Because if it can't defeat a little bit of MDF to represent ribs or sternum, you know, I kind of question that round. So let's try it in the short barrel, both the Underwood and the monolithic, and see how those will do. All right, 3-inch barrel. We'll do the Underwood maximum expansion first. See how this does. Absolutely massive hole, but see what the monolithics went through. They were not expanding in this first part, but look at the extreme or maximum expansion. It definitely is performing as advertised. Let's put that back up. So what we're looking at here is our damage path goes to a little bit past 8, so a little bit past 10 in a real world scenario. Let's try the monolithic in this now. All right, monolithic hollow point, a little bit higher. See what we get. And we got the same thing as I was expecting here. Yeah, so we're at 23.25 inches. Should be about 25.25. Not good. So let's hit our drywall, and we'll see how that does. All right, first up we have our Federal HST as a control here, and we'll see what this will do. And as expected, it went through all of that. So what was that again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of drywall, and then about a ½ inch of pine. So I went through that. Let's try something else. All right, here's our monolithic round. I'm thinking this will go through, so I'm trying this. Yep, went right through that. All right, Underwood maximum expansion. That went through it, but we have a lot larger hole going on here. So it probably has a lot less velocity coming through. I'm not going to try to measure that. I don't want to hit my chronograph, but that's what we get. So let me run a couple of these in the short barrel. All right, I'm not going to run the HST in this because it's not plus P rated, but I'll run the Monolithic and the Underwood in here. So here's our Monolithic. Yeah, went right through it. And here's our maximum expansion. So there's a reason why this knocked over. It's because that actually caught this. That caught it in the shorter barrel, the maximum expansion. So here's the front side here, and our maximum expansion would be, I believe this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There it is. It's in the back of the 8th before it hit the pine. So even though it's hot, it's clogged. You know, this was weak enough, but this is what I'm trying to explain here. You know, just because a hollow point is designed to expand huge and gel and flesh and all of that, this is what happens. This is just weak enough. And, you know, copper is less dense than lead. So that's kind of why I think this caught it. So a 3-inch barrel represents closer to a 4-inch barrel than a 5-inch barrel. We impacted the pine, put a little tiny dent in it. So I'm going to say if you had about a 4-inch barrel, a little bit less, this would probably do okay for your home defense round without too much over penetration if we compare it to what's standard, which goes through a lot more. So let's shoot from 25 yards and see how these rounds will compare to each other. All right, 25 yards from the target. I'm just going to use my 5-inch pistol here because I don't think the accuracy is going to be good enough in that 3-inch to really, you know, draw any conclusions. So I'm going to do 4 rounds of the Monolithic and then 4 rounds of those Underwoods, and we'll see how these compare. I'm just going to really slow fire center mass just to kind of see how these will do. So here's our Monolithics. All right, fist size group at 25 yards. You can't complain about that. So let's try their Underwoods. All right, group's a little bigger. The point of impact is a little bit higher and a little bit to the right. So the Underwoods don't shoot that great necessarily, and the Monolithics seem to shoot a little bit better at 25 yards. However, you know, if we're looking at like a home defense round here, we're not ever going to have that distance. So overall in this testing, what we're seeing here is that I don't think any of these rounds are necessarily ideal, to be honest. But the Underwood definitely did better because it did as advertised. But our Monolithic, Norma Monolithics, did not do as advertised. Now maybe if you were to shoot just plain organic gelatin or just plain clear ballistics without denim, you might get that giant expansion. And that's what a lot of these ammo companies are doing. They're like setting up gel and being like, look, this is what'll happen if you shoot a bad guy and it'll save your life, and it's just drop somebody. And honestly, that's not how it works. If we get into more realistic testing, we're not necessarily going to see that type of performance. So what I'm seeing here is I'm going to stick with HSTs. I'm going to stick with the reliability through all barriers, and I'm not going to miss if I'm going to use it as a home defense round. Now, if you think you're probably going to be shooting a lot of rounds, you're going to be doing a lot of missing. If you have a little bit shorter barrel, 4-inch, 3-inch, 3 1/4, our Monolithic, or not our Monolithic, our Underwood penetrates a hair less. But honestly, I would not rely on that test alone, because that's still a lot of drywall. And when you pack it together versus apart, it acts even harder to break through. So that would pretty much go through many rooms of a house. So that's what you get today. Maximum expanding rounds. The Underwood did all right. The Norma, not so much. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.